John's a lawyer and a historian by training. He has expertise in the fields of human rights, guardianship, supported decision making, powers of attorney and elder abuse. Prior to taking up his current position, John was Victoria's Deputy Public Advocate. He has previously undertaken a Churchill Fellowship on the topic of adult safeguarding, and his books include, as co-author, The Politics of Human Rights in Australia. Welcome, John. And before we get you up, I'm just also going to give an advance welcome by introducing Michelle Browning. So Michelle is passionate about supporting individuals and organisations to develop their skill in the practice of supported decision making. She too is a Churchill fellow and has completed doctoral research into the practice in Canada. I'll be there very shortly. Michelle has been involved in developing, implementing and evaluating supported decision-making projects across Australia. She facilitates training, practice groups and supervision for supporters wanting to build their confidence as practitioners. She also provides training for decision makers wanting to understand more about decision making and their rights. Welcome to you, Michelle. And now, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome John to the podium.
Great to be here with Michelle, with whom I've worked very closely over a number of years. It's terrific to be sharing the stage, so to speak, with Michelle today. I've learned a lot from Michelle, I'm sure everyone here will too. One of the things I say to a group like this at the start is I'm going to give you some pointers on some of the legal developments in relation to supported decision making, but the practice of supported decision making is something we're going to spend most of our time talking about, that Michelle will lead. And on that topic, I know there are, I can just look around, many experts in the room who have their own experiences to tell about supported decision making. Sometimes I'm very wary of people who get up as experts on a particular topic, and there are people in the audience who have lived this for decades, and so I'm very conscious that I'm not trying to tell people what they already know, and in fact I'm here as much to learn from people as to give you my presentation. So anyway, lovely to be here. Great to see Donna up at the back. Donna and I were giving evidence to a parliamentary committee not all that long ago on the same panel, so great to have you here, Donna. So good to see everyone. Okay, I'll get moving because I know I've got time. Jenny, please line me up when it's time. Don't hesitate. All right, I'll begin by acknowledging here in Brisbane, the Angel, we're on the traditional lands of the Yagara and Turrbal peoples, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. What I want to do today is two things, and I'll have two goes at this, because I'll have this presentation, I'll come back later on for another presentation, and then Michelle and I and some of our colleagues will be up on a panel, Q&A session. But what I'll do in this early session is discuss briefly some of the work my office has undertaken and talk about the current and likely future reform trajectory concerning supported decision making. So, my role as public advocate for Queensland, I'm a systemic advocate, which means I advocate systemically for reforms that will improve, hopefully, the lives of adults with impaired decision making ability. That's in the legislation. So basically, adults with cognitive disability are my people for whom I advocate, and I've written what I do. I've got a very small team. We write reports, we lobby government, we try and get changes made that will hopefully improve the lives of adults with cognitive disability. Some of the completed reports I've done, one, I'll just rush through these. One is on an obscure section of the criminal code that Donna and I gave evidence to a parliamentary committee about, which criminalises people with an impairment of the mind, is the phrase, from having sexual relationships. There's an exception if the relationship's not exploitative, but it's a bizarre provision that shouldn't be in the criminal code. I'm calling it to be removed. That's one report. We've done a report on privacy and the confidentiality legislation. I think people who are subject to guardianship here should be able to talk about their experiences. I've called for that before. That actually made national press, that argument. We still haven't gotten it. I'm sure we will. Victoria now agrees that we should, the Victoria Public Advocate agrees we should change this provision. That's another report. I did a report on the acute mental health system and one on supported accommodation here in Queensland, where I sought a parliamentary inquiry There was a parliamentary inquiry. Looking now to get those reforms recommended by the parliamentary inquiry implemented. So there's some of the things I've done. Also did a two-volume report on adult safeguarding in Queensland, particularly relevant to elder abuse, but also relevant to the lives of younger people with cognitive disability, because I think our safeguarding mechanisms are inadequate. We overuse emergency services and we overuse adult guardianship. We don't have anything in between. So I recommended changes there. In fact, week before last, I was giving evidence to the Parliamentary Committee looking at elder abuse, making this argument. The other point I wanted to make was I'm working on two projects at the moment, two big projects, one on adults with cognitive disability in the Queensland criminal justice system. It's a big project. We've just released a discussion paper on the courts. There can be 5 discussion papers in total. And I'm not far away from completing a report on parents with cognitive disability. So this is particularly focused on their involvement with the child protection system. In a nutshell, I'm arguing in this report that will be sent to the Attorney General in a few weeks' time and then tabled in the Queensland Parliament. I'm saying we don't do enough to support parents with cognitive disability. We rather see cognitive disability as a risk factor for children and then have involvement with the child protection system. That was a very quick summary of what I'm doing and have been doing in my role since 2021. Let me talk where we're focused today is on supported decision making. When we think about the some of the legal changes that have been made in relation to supported decision making, this is the starting point. This is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which Australia ratified in 2008. When you ratify an international convention, so this is international law, when you ratify it, you're saying you consider yourself bound by it. That's what Australia was saying. Some of the just highlighted parts of this part of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, so Article 12 is that statement there that where it says states parties, what that means, we read that as Australia, because we've signed up. So Australia reaffirms people with disabilities have the right to recognition and the right to enjoy legal capacity on an equal basis with others and a right to get the support they may require. And the last highlighted bit, measures relating to the exercise of legal capacity, such as guardianship, for instance, respect the rights or the preferences of the person. So that's really the basis of the legal developments that I'll talk about in supported decision making. Some of the key implications of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities are people should be supported to make their own decisions. If any substitute decision-making arrangements are in place, so what I mean by substitute decision-making arrangement is where someone is in the role of decision-making maker for a person. So that can be under adult guardianship. It can be when an enduring power of attorney is activated. You've appointed someone to make your decisions on your behalf. It can also be we have mental health legislation where an authorised psychiatrist can make decisions about treating a person even if that person doesn't consent. So those are substitute decision-making roles. The implications of what I just showed you from the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities are if any substitute decision-making arrangements are permitted, there is some debate about whether you can even have any substitute decision-making arrangements with the compliance with the CRD. Then they should apply for the shortest time possible. Any decisions made should accord with what the person themselves would want to, which aligns with their will and preferences. So rather than historically, and still in some jurisdictions, if you have a guardianship appointment, the guardian can make a decision on what they think is in the person's best interests. That's a very dated paradigm, and it's come to be what we call a euphemism for overriding what the person themselves wants. This change with the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is that people should be supported to make their own decisions. If you do have someone making decisions for a person, an argument about when that should be allowed, then any decision should be made according to what the person themselves would have wanted. That's in accordance with their will and preferences, not what I simply think, Michelle's my substitute decision maker, what Michelle thinks is in my best interest. It's got to go to the person and look at what they would want. There's wide agreement that we overuse adult guardianship as a safeguarding mechanism. People are surprised when I say this. Every guardianship agency in the country agrees with that proposition. We overuse adult guardianship. And the last couple of slides before I hand over to Michelle, the Australian Law Reform Commission made a report in 2014, which is a very important stepping stone in recognising what the United Nations Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities had said in its convention, which we ratified in 2008. 2014, the Australian Law Reform Commission released a report that sought to operationalise, put into practice what the United Nations document had said. They put forward a few key principles. One, the equal right to make decisions. All adults have the equal right to make decisions that affect their lives. Principle 2 is very important. On support, persons who require support in decision making must be provided with access to the support necessary to make, communicate and participate in decisions that affect their lives. And the third one was about will and preferences. If you do have a substitute decision maker, they have to be followed what the person would have wanted, what their will and preferences are. So that, as a result of that legislation, that report, there have been changes to the laws in some states and nationally. Victoria kind of led the way. I'll give you a few examples. So the Powers of Attorney Act in Victoria in 2014 introduced a new role of supportive attorney. Medical treatment legislation 2 years later in Victoria introduced the role of support person. So I was based in Victoria back then, and I and others were advocating for these changes. Another one, 2019, the guardianship legislation introduced the role of supportive guardians and supportive administrators. What is the role of a supporter? The legislative role of a supporter is very simple, and basically will give a supporter access to information that otherwise they mightn't have access to. They are not a decision maker, but they get access to information and can communicate information that, for instance, privacy legislation might otherwise stop. That's really the main legal implication. As I keep saying though, far more important than all the legal developments that have occurred, and there are a number of legal developments, is what's occurring on the practice side of things. That's where you see real change come about, and we are gradually seeing agencies, support providers change their orientation around, rather than simply doing what they think needs to happen, but working with the person to get their choices, support the person to make their own decisions and get their choices respected. That's really the key thing that we're going to be talking about today. Currently in Queensland, we have legislation that says that anyone who's supporting a person or making decisions for a person has to, if possible, support the person to make their own decision. And second, take into account the views, wishes and preferences of the person. I don't think that goes far enough, and I'll talk to you later when I come back about what the future's likely to hold, because I think that should be improved. But nonetheless, we do actually have some reference to support in our current legislation in Queensland, in both our guardianship field and our powers of attorney field.
Well, it's really my pleasure to join you today and to join John, who's been a mentor to me over many years. I worked with John at the Office of the Public Advocate in Victoria, and he's been really someone who's championed the adoption of supported decision making before it was well known. Certainly Victoria, now in Queensland, you're very lucky to have him up here. So I'd really like to build on, I guess, the important context that John's been talking about. There's an important legal context, there's a human rights context that the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability has created around supported decision making, but really I want to talk about what that means for us as individuals, as people who make decisions and as people who support other people to make decisions. So we all wear both of those hats in our lives, but I want to talk to you today with your decision supporter hat on. So I'd like to explore some important ideas that I think shape how we should go about helping other people make decisions, and explore two strategies that I think are a really important part of a good supported decision-making approach. And those two strategies are supporting communication well and enabling risk. So there are lots of important strategies, and I'll point to what some of those are, but yeah, we're just going to focus on those two in this session today. So before we talk anymore, I also would like to acknowledge the Yagara and Tulu people as the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. The image that's on this slide was developed by an Aboriginal artist called Gertrina Hayden, and she was commissioned by Western Australia's Individualised Services, who sadly are no longer as an organisation. I miss them terribly. And they commissioned Gertrina to create an image that visually represented supported decision making. And I want to read you what she wrote about this image because I think it's beautiful and it's a lovely way for us to enter into this thinking about providing decision-making support. She says, the spirits in the image represent individuals making decisions, with the meeting circles behind them representing the supports they choose to use, like family, friends, colleagues, or professionals. The branches and leaves show personal growth from being able to make your own decisions and choose your own path, while receiving support to help you along the way, self-direction. The top and bottom meeting places represent support services, and the spirals leading out from these meeting places represent the road, path, journey that the individual will take when making decisions about their lives after receiving advice and guidance from the support services or people they have chosen to help guide them in the direction they wish to go. So a beautiful image, and I think I love sharing with different audiences. So, what is supported decision making? Practically. Well, it's the process of providing practical assistance with decision making, and it offers each of us a broad range of supports to be able to make our own decisions and stay in control of our lives. But what do I mean by practical assistance? I think I love this illustration. I asked a man called Jeffrey Phillips, who's based down in Victoria, to create this for me, and it was created for my website, but I love showing it because I think we all can feel like we're tangled up in decision making. It's not an easy thing often to make decisions, and I think at the heart of supported decision making is the idea that the decision maker always holds on to control of the decision making process. And even though they might be quite tangled up in that, they reach out for support and assistance. And the supporter, our role as supporters, is to be able to hold space for the person to explore and unravel and work through their options, the risks, the possible consequences of what might happen, so that they reach the end of that process and they've never let go of control of that decision-making process. And so our role as a supporter is to really act in ways, provide support in ways that make sure others have and remain in control of the decision-making process. So I'd like to show you an animation that Western Australian Individualised Services as well. They did some amazing project work in the supported decision-making space.
What is supported decision-making? Supported decision-making is the process of providing practical assistance with decision-making to people who need support. So, what do we mean when we say practical assistance? Practical assistance can involve things like ensuring the person knows there's a decision to be made, explaining and clarifying information, and creating opportunities to try new things. It can involve helping the person identify and weigh up their options, solve problems, and minimise their stress and anxiety. Practical assistance can also involve identifying possible risks, developing an understanding of consequences, and helping the person implement their decision. For people with complex communication access needs, providing practical assistance can include other things, like learning the person's unique language.
I noticed you're looking away and down. I think you're telling me that you don't like this bodyboard. Okay, now I see you're smiling and looking at the surfboard. I think you're telling me you want to try this board.
Practical assistance can also include acknowledging all the ways a person is communicating and acting on their expressions of preference, the things they like and don't like. These expressions of preference can be the basis of choices, which can be built into formal decisions. Supported decision-making includes reflecting on the decision that's been implemented.
I think there's some beautiful examples in that video of practical assistance and what it looks like for people. And what I particularly love about that is that it shows a person that's not using words to communicate their preferences. It's one of the only videos that I've seen that does that. So I think it's really powerful for us to know and understand that supported decision making is for everyone, and that it's about us understanding how will and preferences are the basis of decisions, and how we provide support might look different for different individuals. That's our role as decision supporters, to be competent communication partners. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. So John, I think, started an important conversation around the critical link between supported decision making and human rights. So I think the way that we in Australia came to really find out about supported decision making was in the context of conversations around the Convention, the rights of persons with disabilities. And it was really in the context of delegates from Canada who had a much bigger ambition for supported decision making than just supporting people to be able to make their own decisions. It wasn't just about providing practical assistance that we kind of saw in that video. There was a big question around, or motivation, ambition, that was much greater than just helping people to make good decisions in their lives. It was family members of people with severe and profound intellectual disabilities that really understood that for their adult sons and daughters to be seen as full human beings, to have the same rights as everyone else in society, to be able to open a bank account, to be able to exercise their legal rights, to be able to have access to individualised funding. They needed the law to recognise and see their sons and daughters as decision makers, and that wasn't the case. And so they advocated very strongly for supported decision making, this process of providing practical assistance to be legally recognised in Canada. And so it was those founding fathers and mothers of supported decision making that really understood from the outset that it was a way of helping people obtain equal legal decision making rights. And so the rest of the world found out about that idea when they were talking about Article 12 at the drafting of the Convention, when people first heard about this idea that in the same way that a person with a physical disability may need a ramp to be able to access a building. We heard a powerful story about that from Dan and Samuel Habib this morning. People with cognitive disabilities need support to be able to remain legal decision makers and exercise their legal decision making rights. So when we signed up to the Convention, Australia said we agreed that we have an obligation to provide people with support to exercise their legal capacity. So Australia is a signatory in red there. And so I think as practitioners, as people that help others to make decisions, I think it's really important that we understand how significant the change in thinking was that led to Article 12 being part of the Convention. So John mentioned substituted decision making that's guided by what's in the person's best interest, and how supported decision making is fundamentally different to that. So I'd just like to take a little bit of time for us to dive down a bit deeper into this, because we've inherited lots of ideas, lots of ways of thinking that reflect substitute decision making, even though we don't realise it. And so what I'd like to do is, I guess, help us to understand this so that when we're helping other people make decisions, we can take an approach that really aligns with this completely different way of approaching things that supported decision making asks of us. So I think this image here is an illustration that I think is helpful when we're talking about this. So in 1514, Nicholas Copernicus, a mathematician and an astronomer, put forward a new way of thinking about the universe. So he put the sun at the centre rather than the earth, and he believed that the planets rotated around the sun rather than it being the other way around. And Copernicus's ideas were so radical that they sparked revolution. And I think in the same way, Copernicus turned thinking about the universe upside down, supported decision making, turns substitute decision making on its head. So you can see in this image, and this is what John was already talking to you about, in the land, the world, in the paradigm of substitute decision making, the person's will and preferences. And when we talk about will and preferences, we're talking about a person's will is who they are, it's their values, beliefs, commitments. We understand those by seeing how a person lives their life. We may not be able to articulate, I probably would struggle to tell you what my will might be, but you can see what my will is, what my beliefs, what's really important to me in the way that I live my life. My preferences are my likes and dislikes. My preferences are changeable. I might prefer one thing today and something else tomorrow. So our preferences are changeable and our will tends to be more enduring. And it's those two things together. It's what we want in the context of who we are and what's really important to us that needs to be guiding the decision-making process. So in substituted decision-making, who a person is and what they want is one of many planets rotating around in that universe. So a substitute decision maker that's making decisions for somebody under the Guardianship Act has to consider the person's wishes, their preferences, what it is that they want, and they're guided by legislation that requires them to act in the person's best interest. Whereas in a supported decision-making paradigm, if we're wanting to embrace supported decision-making and take that approach in the way that we're helping people make decisions, where the person's will and preferences, who they are and what it is they're telling us that they want, is at the very heart, it's the centre, it's the sun of the decision-making universe. So it's a fundamentally different way of thinking about decision-making and what's shaping that process. So there's some other big ideas that are part of this paradigm shift, and this slide really tries to summarise what they are. And I think it's important that we know what these are, because some of these ideas we might be we might believe these things without realising, and they influence how we go about providing decision support. So we need to know what we're moving away from and why. So instead of seeing people with disability as needing protection, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities reframes people with disability as rights holders. So we're not starting working with people seeing that they're vulnerable, that they're a person in need of protection. Instead, we're seeing them as a rights holder. People once denied their legal capacity are considered to have legal capacity universally. So the right to be seen as a legal decision maker and the right to sign contracts, vote, marry, open a bank account, they're things that we all have a right to, whether or not we need support to be able to do those things and exercise that right. And so the Convention and the supported decision-making paradigm says that we don't see legal capacity as something that should be denied to people. Mental capacity assessments are no longer necessary because decision-making capacity is assumed. So we're starting from a place where we're assuming people are capable of making decisions, and so we don't need to assess their capacity. the question becomes, what supports and accommodations does this person need to be able to exercise their legal decision-making rights? Decision-making ability is not seen as fixed, but is able to be developed. And decision-making capacity is not thought about cognitively, but includes the support available to the person in the decision-making process. So, most legislation in Australia still requires that involves capacity assessing, contains words along the lines of the need to assess the person's ability to understand and appreciate the consequences of decisions. And that's really thinking about decision-making as something that happens when we're on our own, and it's a process that happens in our heads, it's cognitive. Whereas supported decision-making asks us to think about decision-making very differently. We recognise that we make decisions with other people. It's a collaborative process, it's a shared process. And so it's not just about what happens in an individual's mind. Decision-making is about a process that we engage in together. And so the supports and the help that you're providing other people can make all the difference in terms of whether or not someone is able to express their preference, and that someone's interpreting that preference and on the basis of that, acting, and that's allowing the person to make choices and can be built up into more formal decisions, which is what was shown in that animation a little bit earlier. So, lastly, substitute decision-making is directed by what's in the best interest of the person that John already discussed, whereas supported decision-making is directed by the person's will and preferences. So that's that image of the Copernican revolution that we're seeing, that will and preference is now shifted to being one of many things that we think about, to being front and centre. It's the sun in the universe of the person's decision-making. And lastly, we don't see that decisions don't have to be made independently, but they can now be made with support. So we recognise that decision-making is this shared process. So there's some big ideas there that we've covered very quickly. But I think it's important that we know them. I talk about this every time I talk about supported decision-making. I share that slide because I feel like unknowingly, when we act as decision supporters, we might have inherited through legislation, through conversations we've had with professionals, these ideas around decision-making and people with disability. And we need to change those ways of thinking to be able to really embrace all that supported decision-making is actually about. So you will have seen on that slide, one of the things that's most critical to the paradigm shift, to the new way of thinking, is thinking about capacity differently. There were a number of those points that related to this idea of capacity. So I think it's really important that we recognise that our ability to make decisions is shaped not only by our skills and experience as individuals, but also by our context and the quality of the support available to us. Children develop decision-making skills over time, and they're supported to learn these by the important people in their lives. We help children make choices, and they gradually develop confidence in who they are and in their ability to express their preferences. And I think Samuel and the videos that we saw, the snippets of that, were really powerful examples of that. We support people to understand that decisions involve choosing between different options that will have different consequences for them. So this is all part of what we learn as we grow and develop. But supported decision-making starts from an assumption that people can make decisions with the right support. So that's the starting point. So that's a fundamentally different starting point to assessing whether or not someone has the capacity to make a decision. So you can see that supported decision-making has a fundamentally different starting point. And I think the way that society has thought about decision-making capacity in the past has really led to the exclusion of people with disability from making the decisions which shape their lives. And I think the prevalence of substituted decision-making has really resulted in chronic low expectations of people with disability and children and adults. So I think supported decision-making really sees decision-making ability differently. So I'm wanting to encourage you to choose to see decision-making ability differently today. And we understand in doing that a person's decision-making capacity must include the supports available to them in the decision-making process. So what I'd like to put to you is an idea of if we're rejecting what the law currently says how we should see decision-making capacity, what do we replace that with? I think we need language. I think we need a different way of being able to explain to people that may not agree with this new view of seeing the world. They may not see things from a supported decision-making perspective. So I think you can see on the slide, there's a formula here. And this was developed by two Canadians, Michael Bark, who was at the drafting of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and a human rights lawyer called Lana Kurtzner. And they were asked by the Ontario Law Reform Commission to write a paper to explain, well, if we rejected substitute decision-making, we wanted to put in law the ambition of Article 12 of the Convention, what would it look like? And it's like a 250-page document. Embedded within that is this formula, because they recognised, they understood that for the law to truly see these things differently and respond differently, it needed to take a different way, a different approach to decision-making capacity. And this is what they recommended instead. They said, we take the person's ability and we add to that supports and accommodations, and together they are what create a person's decision-making capability. Now, I think this is helpful, this language, choosing a different word, decision-making capability, to talk about someone's ability to make decisions can be very powerful, a shift in language. I think if we adopt this way of thinking, it can be helpful in a number of ways. Firstly, I think it recognises that people have their own unique abilities, and that we can provide people with supports and accommodations to enable them to make decisions and build their capability over time. So over time, the supports and accommodations you provide will likely change in response to a person's changing ability. This is what we do with children naturally. As a child's decision-making skills and experience increase, the support and accommodations that we provide change, reduce over time. But even if a person's decision-making ability does not change at all, which it always does, but even if we imagine that the change is limited, by changing the supports and accommodations we provide, by becoming better communication partners, by understanding the unique ways a person is expressing their preferences, by being more responsive, by understanding these things, we can significantly improve a person's decision-making capability. Thirdly, if we encounter people, for example, health professionals or lawyers that tell us that the people or person that we're supporting doesn't have the capacity to make a certain decision, then we can use this language to suggest that, well, actually, I believe this person does have decision-making capability and they need you, someone important in this process, to provide them with X, Y, and Z. These specific supports and accommodations are needed. So, for example, they need more time than what you're currently giving them. They need information in easy read or whatever format they might need. They need to be shown their options, not just talk to about them. They need a competent communication partner. So this is where I think when we're clear about the importance of supports and accommodations, we can advocate for those in these circumstances. So I really believe that in time our laws will change, and John was talking about that earlier, to reflect this new way of thinking about decision making, about thinking about a person's decision making capacity. But until then, right now, I think embracing the supported decision making approach means that you have the power to change and develop people's decision making capability. Even if the law doesn't change, it doesn't matter. When you're taking this approach, you're entirely changing a person's decision-making environment. It can have such a significant impact on their life. So by getting to know the supports and accommodations the person you support needs, and by advocating more strongly for that, then you're building their decision-making capability. So I also, so John's going to talk to you a little bit later about the Disability Royal Commission and what we have learned about supported decision-making, I think from a legal, policy, big picture context. But I also want to talk to you as practitioners about the Royal Commission, because I think there were some insights that came out of that amazing body of work that change how we think about what we're doing as decision supporters. So prior to, I've been involved in this work since 2010, so quite a long time now. And prior to the Royal Commission, I don't think I ever heard anyone talk about supported decision making as a safeguard. But I think the Royal Commission really allowed us, through hearing people's lived experience, through reflecting on that, listening deeply, we've come to understand how it's very important to safeguard against a number of risks. And I just wanted to, I guess, touch on these because they might be relevant to the people that you support. So, firstly, I think supported decision making is talked about in these 3 different volumes significantly: enabling autonomy and access, nature and extent of violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation, and when talking about the provision of disability services. So some really important things were said in those volumes of the work of the Commission. I think firstly the Royal Commission really clarified that people's risk of exposure to violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation increases when people with disability are isolated and we're deprived of choice and control over the services that they receive. So when we're supporting people to make important decisions regarding their services, regarding the supports that they receive, we're really reducing their risk of exposure to violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation. The Royal Commission also reflected that people with disability have experienced violence, abuse, neglect and exploitation in the context of guardianship and financial administration. And they really made a series of recommendations regarding guardianship reform, which is centred around supported decision making being front and centre within those acts. And I think John will probably explain what that might look like. But I fully support guardianship reform, so it absolutely needs to change. And I think a lesson from the Royal Commission is that we should do everything in our power to avoid guardianship and financial administration for people. It's an abuse of people's autonomy. And we know that abuses happen when we're stripped of our autonomy. And we should do everything in our power to avoid that for people. So I think that's a slightly stronger position than acknowledging it's overused. And I think supported decision making I think this should inspire us to want to be able to provide good decision support as a viable, feasible alternative to people. We need to be serious about ensuring it is a real alternative for people, because the alternative is not what we want. The Royal Commission also reflected on the use of restrictive practices and their impact on people with disability. They reported that people often experience restrictive practices in the following interconnected ways: as trauma, pain, harm and violation, as abandonment and neglect, as fear, as disempowering, humiliating and dehumanising, as cruel and punishing treatment, and can create lifelong trauma and life-altering effects. They concluded that restrictive practices should only be authorised and used as a last resort and in response to the risk of harm to the person with disability or others, and only after other strategies, including supported decision-making, have been explored and applied. So again, for us to be able to provide good decision support as an alternative way of addressing the needs that people have that may not be being met in their environments, it's so important. So So I guess I'm just really wanting to say and reiterate through this that what you're doing when you're providing decision support is so important. And I wonder if you've ever really had the chance to think about just how important it is. Knowing how to provide good decision support safeguards people by providing them with greater choice and control, giving them support to navigate complex systems, and we know how complex the systems are that we're navigating. Assistance to understand information and explore a broad range of options, increased opportunities to make decisions and have that control, and a greater likelihood that decisions that reflect the preferences of people, they do reflect the preferences that people have. So their lives look like the way they want to. And I guess lastly, the Royal Commission said when it's done right, good decision support raises the quality of services that are provided to people. The Royal Commission expects that each person receiving services is entitled to support to make everyday life decisions, including what services they receive, in what way and from whom. That they have the opportunity to make decisions about their goals and aspirations, that they're supported to develop their decision-making skills, they're supported to communicate their will and preferences, and they have the right to choose their own supporter. So it's a hard time, and I heard Mark, and I am really so happy to be at this conference because I think we all need hope, we all need to feel encouraged and inspired. And I guess I want you to, I think the findings, the learning, the amazing lessons that came out of the Royal Commission, it's easy for us to forget those, put them to the side. And I wanted to just talk about them because I felt there are amazing things that we've learned. I want to now, I guess, speak to you as practitioners, people that are providing decision support. We're sold on the idea, we're committed, we understand why it's so important and our role is really important. And I think there are two really important things that we need to know if we're committed to becoming better decision supporters. And they are, we need to have the right approach to providing decision support, and we need to understand what a good decision-making process looks like. So I have come up with 10 strategies that I think constitute a good approach to supported decision-making. So we've already talked about assuming capability in the course of talking about thinking about decision-making capacity differently. We talked about the importance of always starting from an assumption that people are capable of making decisions with the right support. So that's one strategy that I think is really important. There are others like respecting will and preferences. So we touched on the idea of will and preferences and how they're central to decision making. We've also, there are things like strengthening relationships that are so important in people's lives and minimising our influence as decision supporters. But today we're going to focus on two strategies because we don't have time to go through all 10. And they are supporting communication and enabling risk. Both of those are very important parts of being able to take the right approach in helping people to make decisions. So, in terms of process, we're not actually going to talk through a good decision-making process today, but there are some wonderful resources, and at the end of the session after lunch, I'll just share a few resources that I would encourage you to explore if you're interested in exploring process and what a good process looks like. But when I talk with people, often I spend a lot more time talking about the strategies that I think make up a good supported decision-making approach. Because if you use those strategies, if you're approaching things in that way, the process itself and understanding what the key elements of the process are is quite simple and something that's intuitive to us anyway. We make decisions all the time. sometimes having a structure can be useful to you. So but there are lots of amazing tools and resources now that can assist you with that. So now I'd like to invite Taylor and Hazel Lloyd are going to join me to talk about our first strategy this morning, which is supporting communication. So, and I'll just say, I think there's a really fundamental link between communication and decision making and having autonomy. So we know that autonomy, people having control of their lives, is fundamental to the vision of supported decision making. So, and I think, again, the stories that Samuel was sharing from his own lived experience really demonstrated that. We could see how him being supported well to use the different communication devices that changed over time for him has been incredibly powerful in him being able to engage with others, have the connections that he had, but also and be meaningfully included. And I would dare say make decisions around all of those ways in which there's amazing activities that he's taken up and been engaged in. So I'd love to invite Hazel and Taylor Lloyd to come down the front. Taylor's going to be sharing about what's important to him when he's being supported to communicate his choices and make decisions. And Hazel, Taylor's mother, will share what she has learned as Taylor's communication partner over many years. So yeah, thank you so much for coming today and being willing to share. I think they might start by sharing some of the decisions and choices that Taylor makes in his week.
Thanks for having us. This is Taylor's very first time at presenting, and I've done a few, but I don't overly enjoy it, but you know, crew does their thing, don't they, and gets everyone up here. So yeah, we thought, well, there's some photos up there of all the things that you do during your week, hey Tay? Yeah. You make lots of decisions and choices all through your week. And what are some of the things that you get up to? So on Monday, Lego, yeah, which is in Cooper's Plains, and you get the train to Lego do the sorting. And on Wednesday?
Tuesday starting.
Oh, okay, Tuesdays, what do you do?
Go Alex.
Yep. And Wednesday?
Bowling.
What do you do at bowling?
Cafe league. And then homeschool bowling.
Yeah, 2 leagues in a row. And Thursday?
We've got Bryce been shopping the rest before conductive as well.
Right. Sorry. Yes, that's the rest of the day of Wednesday. All of those things. And then Thursday?
My day out with Declan.
Yep. And Friday?
My day out with Declan again.
Yep. And some of the things you do are?
Pickleball. Lunch. Gym. More lunch. I've also got more ST.
Yes, correct. Well done, Dara. And then the weekend with the family and do lots of things on there as well, don't we? So how do we click on the next one? Oh, there we go.
Well, it sounds like you have an amazing week, Taylor, full of great things that you're deciding to do. I think when we're thinking about helping people to make decisions and thinking about their communication, we really need to know who people are and what is important to them to be able to support their communication well. We really need to understand how they tell people what it is they want, how they express their preferences. For example, you might know someone always chooses the last option when it's presented to them. And so if you really want to understand what their preference is, you have to swap the options, and if their preference remains the same, then you can be confident that that's their preference. So knowing the little intricacies of each person's uniqueness is really critical to being able to support their decision making and supporting their communication is a critical part of that. So I'd like to ask Taylor and Hazel, what do you need people to know to be able to support your communication well, Taylor?
We had some thinking about this, didn't we? And we think one of the big things, can we go to the next one? There you are, look, that's you up there. One of the big things is that whoever's hanging out with you really need to know how to have a bit of fun, don't they? They need to be able to have a joke and to get your jokes.
Yeah.
Yes, because you always have jokes and have a bit of a laugh and try to trick people, and they need to know that that's just having a bit of fun, isn't it? And when people are a bit too serious and they say no or don't too much, then that can be a bit worrying, and so it doesn't really work very well, hey? And they also need to get it that sometimes you don't like to just be asked direct questions, and that you like to, sometimes it can be hard for you if there's just lots of questions coming at you, hey?
Yeah.
And so something we worked out is that it can be good for you to have like have a few options to choose from, because that can make it easier. So like if we were going to say, where do you want to go today? Do you want to go to the Valley or the city or Roma Street?
I can't remember.
Yeah, so we would think, okay, maybe is it the Valley or the city?
I don't know.
Cool. Well, that's okay. No problem. We'd probably work it out. Often when I ask you things like that, you say, not the Valley, not the city, not Roma Street, and that usually means you want to go to the Valley, yeah?
Well, think about it.
We do, we think about it, don't we?
Bless you. That's a good thing.
It was.
That's embarrassing me.
When we were thinking about, like when I'm thinking about how you want to get the things across that you want to say, I feel like that sometimes it's my job to help put in some more words that will, like to your words. So if you're telling someone something and you'll say some words and then I just help by putting in some more words. Is that how it goes, you reckon?
No.
Okay. So, like when you were wanting to ask Jason at bowling about something, do you remember?
Is it about rainbow?
Yeah. So you wanted to ask Jason about that at the 10-pin bowling, and all the screens have a background on them, don't they? And they're different, and so you wanted to ask Jason specifically. What did you want to ask him again?
About the different rainbow.
Yeah, so you went up to the desk and you started talking to Jason, and then I just came and helped to explain to Jason a bit more detail about what you were asking him, and then he could get it, didn't he? Because there's actually two types of rainbows, and you wanted the other rainbow, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Cool. And so that's how we work as a team, isn't it? and to get people to know what you're wanting to say to them and what you want to ask people. And with this one, I think what I was trying to get at there was if people are good at helping you say what you want to say, then it helps you want to say more, and it gives everyone energy to keep doing it. And the way Dan said it is that if there isn't that good support, people just retreat inside themselves, and so we want people to think about the fact that they're really important and to be good at helping you to say what you want to say.
Like what?
Like when you want to tell people a joke. What's that one from the tipping point?
About the penalty part.
Yes. So sometimes people didn't get that, so I tell them that if something is going into the penalty pot, that means that they are totally
Wrong.
because that's what happens with wrong answers on tipping point, isn't it?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Taylor. If it's okay with you, I'd like to ask Hazel a question now. I'm wondering, Hazel, as a communication partner, what are some of the things that you've kind of learned over time about the process of involving new people in Taylor's life?
Thank you. So this question's for me, so I'll talk a bit, but you can tell me if there's anything you want to say, okay?
Like what?
You tell me if I say the wrong thing. So what Michelle asked me was, what are the things that I've learnt about bringing new people in, like Declan and Alex. And one of the big things that I've learnt is just to accept that this is always going to be something that we're going to be doing for forever. We're always going to have new people around, hey? And I think it's come as a natural thing as Kay's getting older, because you need to go out and about with people, don't you, that aren't mum and aren't the family. And so we've learned that new people need time to get to know you and need to see other people doing support well, need to see me and you talking and how we do it, and that's really the best way to learn, rather than just being sort of told about how to do it. And so we just hang out together, don't we, and hang out with new people and let them see it. And we've also come to the realisation that some people will just get it and some people won't, and just fairly naturally. And if we've learnt that if the people who don't get it easily, it's good just to move on and save everybody's time and energy. Say bye, we're moving on. Yeah. Did you have anything else you were thinking of?
Where am I going to do my banking?
After here, either the city or the valley.
Maybe I'll do it at the valley.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Where am I going to do my Woolworths shopping?
City or valley?
I think I'll do my Woolworths shopping near Central Station.
Awesome. It's a new little baby woolies that we found, isn't it, that you're going to show Declan?
Yes, it is.
Cool. And so some of the practical things that we've worked out along the way of how to help new people get the information that they need in the best way and the quickest way and the most effective way for all of us are these things. We because it's an ongoing thing. We think that learning what works for yourselves and for your family is really important to so that you can have enough energy to keep doing this. So we found that outsourcing the creation of resources is to other people is a great idea. So your speechy Jess, she was so good, isn't she? And she's created things like this one pager, and then we're going to watch a video in a minute, aren't we, of you guys? And they are just great things to have to quickly and easily convey the basics to new people. And I think that's important too, that often allied health or appointments can be just with the person with disability, but it's so much better for people to get to know you with support, with good support, communication support, and
What else?
What else?
I'm also going to do a assistance at the Woolworths Near Central Station.
Yeah, you're going to call for assistance? Nice. So yeah, I think it's important for practitioners to see it in action and to value that. And the other reason that it became apparent that was really important is that the speechy Jess explained things that I was doing as a supporter that I didn't actually even realise I was doing. And so to be conscious of those things is, you need to be conscious of them in order to then be able to explain it to other people. So that was really valuable for that to happen. And she did create a few videos around that, and then this one I think we're watching now. Yeah, we're going to watch the video now of you.
We'll be able to see them a little bit from a different angle from the other room. You know, the C room? We'll
Not
be at
the C room.
I heard you say not the C room. Maybe you're telling me to want to stay here a little bit longer. Oh, someone's on a scooter.
Maybe the C room later.
I love that idea. Thanks for letting me know your choice.
At the end of the break.
Okay. Good plan.
What should they be doing?
I think, well, when the snow comes down and
Should they be discoing, dancing?
No.
At midnight.
Okay, Mum's idea is discoing. Jasmine, what's your idea?
What should they be doing?
At midnight.
Eating.
Midnight feast. Ooh.
No, that's wrong.
Wrong.
I think they could maybe.
What's Jess's idea?
I think maybe they could go for a swim.
Not go for a swim.
Okay,
At
so
midnight.
Everyone, like all people need to basically work out what works best for them, obviously, as with all things, but I think a universal thing that we could say that works for everyone is that there has to be a good relationship between the person and the supporter. There has to be a lot of trust. The support itself doesn't always have to be perfect, but the trust, underlying trust, needs to be there. And for us and our family, that
I've got something. When will my receipt be in my everyday rewards app?
as soon as you scan your Everyday Rewards card, it goes straight into your app, and then you can go and look it up there. Tay has shown us that it's the fun. Bringing the fun is what works well for us, and that's how we choose to approach it. And one of the things that we sometimes find ourselves on is a bit of a treasure hunt. A bit of a treasure hunt. Tay will drop us some clues along the way, and one of the things I was thinking about was that when you want to find something on YouTube and you tell me some words and I have to go and try and find the right video.
Like what?
Like that was it Alinta Energy or AGL?
It's not the AGL, no.
It was the Alinta Energy, and it was something about never harder.
The change is never harder.
And I had to work out that the actual ad was the change is never easier, but you like to change it up and make it even harder for me to figure out. But we finally got there, because and that's how sometimes it can take a few days even for me to put all the clues together and figure out what it is you're looking for on YouTube, and then we finally find it, and then we celebrate. Finally, Mum got it. Yeah, do you want to see if anyone's got questions?
About what?
About you. There's one over there. How do you want to do it?
Hey, Tane, I get to be, I'm over here. Can you see? There, in the back here. My daughter Fran, she likes me to be a detective too. And I'm wondering, because sometimes it takes Hazel a little bit of time to be a good detective, does that feel frustrating? Do you get cranky, or can you wait for Mum to find it?
I don't know that one, unfortunately.
Do you get a bit frustrated, or do we just keep on trying and having a bit of fun, or something else?
I look fine.
Yeah, it's tricky. I'll ask Mum because Mum's the detective.
Yeah.
How do you feel, Hazel?
I feel like it's a bit of an adventure and we just keep on trying. And sometimes we both just go, well, nah, that's it for today. We kind of, we'll come back to it. Taylor's pretty good at being persistent and coming back to me and asking again, aren't you, if I can't get it. And I don't think there's one we haven't been able to get. There has been some that have even probably taken weeks. And we finally click. Because I think the penalty pot one, we couldn't figure that out for a long time, hey? But then we finally heard it one day, because the guy's got an English accent as well on tipping point. So he says it a little funny. So we couldn't quite, and then one day we heard it and went, that's it. The penalty pot. We finally got it. So we just stick at it and keep it fun, and we don't get too frustrated, do we?
No.
Hi Taylor and Hazel, my name is Katie, and my question is if you're able to maybe describe a situation where you've, Taylor's had to make a bit more of a significant decision or quite an impactful decision, and maybe what that was, if you're happy to share, and Hazel, how you were able to support him to make that kind of bigger decision in life.
Yeah. What are some big decisions that you've had to make, Tay? I'm trying to think. Maybe a bit of thinking about if you want to get a job. Would that be one of them?
Of what?
About whether you like to go to a job and do some do work. So that is probably one of them. It just over time, and we keep revisiting. We talk about the subject that we're thinking about just through different times of the day. We talk about other people that we might know who might be doing similar things to what we're talking about, and like known people like our family, and use them as examples. Like Dad goes to day shift, doesn't he? And he has to earn the bucks in order to. Why does Daddy go to day shift and earn the bucks?
I don't know.
What does he have to buy with his bucks? To pay for your?
Don't know.
Pay for your rice and your chocolate cakes. That's why people go to work, to earn the bucks, to pay for stuff that they want.
Yeah.
And so we just keep talking about it, and checking in, reiterating what Tagmo said in the past about things, and just saying, is that right? Or so it's a process, and we just have to keep open mind and keep being curious. And
We need to really check and recheck our interpretation of what people are communicating to us. We can do that by kind of reflecting back, taking the time, circling back. All of these things are ways that we go about doing that, and I think especially with people that don't use words to tell us what it is that they want, or some words but a lot of other modes of communication as well. It's that's circling back, that giving a time and checking and rechecking. It allows the person the space, I think that Dan and Sammy were talking about as well, to be able to, so you can get that clarity about a bigger decision that might have more consequences for someone. Well, I would love to just thank you, Taylor and Hazel, so much for coming and sharing your wisdom with us today. Taylor, you make lots of decisions with great support from the people in your life, and we saw and have heard from you lots of great choices and decisions that you're making. And I think that I've learned from you the importance of being lighthearted, not taking things too seriously, and how powerful and how much more fun that is when we help people that need help with their communication. And Hazel, I think the creativity that you use and the sense of adventure that you bring to your role as a communication partner is really amazing. And yeah, I think it's infectious, and I hope that the reflections that we've heard today really inspire others who are assisting others with their communication too. So thank you so much. Thank you to you all for joining us for this first part of the session. We'll return again at 1:30, and I'll talk about the second supported decision-making strategy around enabling risk.